What's up, Internet? Aaron, aka TechTonic here. I'm going to be going in on some sound design methods that I used in my most recent track, Spirit Animals. So, let's dive in. Here is the sound. It's called Cool Drop Sound. But as you can see, Cool Drop Sound is a lot of sounds. So let's take a look at what the whole thing sounds like together with the track. Alright, so here's what the sound sounds like on its own. So as you can tell, there's a lot going on behind the scenes in this sound. So what I'm going to do is break down how and why each layer exists, I guess, by soloing them. And then I'll go how I combine all the sounds together. So here's the initial patch I made, which is, by the way, I use Serum for most of my sounds, but you could do this on any. So you can see it's two sine waves, FM'd and detuned. This is my width, adding width to my sound layer. See, I used wider, 200% on wider. Okay, well that's how you get stereo width, I guess. Just make sure if you're going to put something that wide, you got to mid-side EQ it so that you don't have all these artifacts down low. You're also going to notice more EQing like this in the sounds. Essentially, each sound, think of it like a puzzle piece, and each sound needs to frequency-wise needs to fit together. So kind of my approach I take is, what's the most interesting part of this sound, and then make sure that you cut the stuff that's not. So for me, I thought the most interesting part was this stereo width, kind of in this 200 to 600-ish range or so. So that's that layer. Next I have the filtered square layer, which is literally this motion. Notice that I believe I just copy pasted the initial patch and recreated all my sounds with that same LFO ramp, like the that's definitely how that sound goes. So if you look at the EQ, you can see what part of the sound I was trying to highlight. Usually I try and highlight sounds by cutting. I don't usually boost like that, but in this case, I guess I did it. And then I also cut out the rest of the sound. Next is the white noise. It looks like this sound is off. I must not be using that one. Bed of squares. I could use that sound. Yep, just detune square waves with the randomness turned down. And then you have a filter in there. Cool. And notice this one's turned way down, so it's just kind of subtly filling out the sound. And lastly, I don't know why, but those rising squares just get me hype. It's like time to party, you know? Literally a square wave with that same LFO shape, except I went into the matrix of Serum and made that apply to the pitch. So in all of these patches, you have that unifying LFO shape that helps all your sounds move together and create a cohesive, make it sound like it's one sound, even though in reality it's 5 or 6 put together. Once you got all your sounds layered together the way you want, I'll do processing on the group, which if you're using a different DAW, you can just do a send for this. So saturate it together, decent amount of OTT to brighten it up, and compress it. If you want a big sound, you gotta have a lot of compression. I used Trash 2, which is one of my, I use this all the time on my sounds. Looks like subtle saturation here. Pro MB I use to kind of boost the sounds where I need them. So I don't do this until the very end of all the processing, just because I'm trying to do as much cutting as possible. It makes it easier to get a loud mix if you're doing subtractive EQ and cutting everything out. And then I just kind of put this for some high-end focus. Like, still sounds good, but it's just a little dull without MB. You could do that with the Ableton multi-band as well. I just love looking at the pretty colors. It makes producing fun. I also probably clip the living. That is some mad clipping. The clipping, also, I'm trying to get the sound, like the peaks out of the sound, so that when we put it through the master chain at the end of the whole shindig, it can get really loud. And then I think that's just the side chain, yeah. And at the very end, I probably made these cuts based on what other things were happening in the song. I don't know for a fact I did. I know that's where the square, the melody, the boop, 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 boo, doo, boo, is sitting up here, which I'll get more into some melodic writing stuff. Where is that? Oh, right here. Yeah, so you can see right where that melody is sitting is where I'm going to cut out of here, because I want that to kind of have a place to shine. So think of your song as like one giant puzzle, and EQ, 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 EQ. I even have processing on here too. Cool. The more things you do on groups like this, the more, in my opinion, you can get your sounds to mesh cohesively. Like the bass and the fill and the drop stuff from here all have this cohesion. It's this processing. Yeah, and I layered a sub onto, which I'll go into how I do subs in a later time. All together, you get a giant bass sound ready for a big system.